Welcome to the Fantasy Football Podcast Extraordinaire. I'm Jim. On the other side of the screen is Kyle, our other host. We are getting ready for playoff football for the first time of the year. How you feeling, Kyle?
I'm doing all right. I mean, I'm not in the playoffs, so I won't get that action, but I'm still in a bracket. It's not as prestigious as the winners bracket, but it's something to be played for. So I'm still looking forward to it. I'm still having fun with it.
Yeah, that's what it's supposed to mean.
yeah.
It's supposed to do that. You don't want to get that trophy. It should make it a little more exciting to, win those next 2 or 3 games. It keeps it fun for another couple weeks.
Yeah, it makes you keep playing. Otherwise, this time of year, usually if it's just my team in my other league, it's like, well, sure, I'll set a lineup, but I don't really give a shit anymore.
Exactly.
The whole thing's kind of pointless.
Yeah, and if you have a bad enough team, you're out week, 12. You already stopped caring weeks ago,
Yeah, like I would have been out 2 weeks ago, just kind of coasting.
Yep.
I'll always have enough respect to set my lineup just to not give people free wins, but you're not playing the waivers anymore. You're not really
right. And that's pretty much how I approach that. I don't try to just give people layups or anything, but yeah, he's definitely lose interest.
Sounds like Richard almost did that this last week.
Oh, really?
Or he was about to. Yeah, in the text chat. We'll just get into the fab bet right away because it's specifically related to that. Yeah, the fab bet for last week was, would Richard break 90? He did by quite a bit. He scored 112.7 on the backs of his new running back, Isaac Guerrero, and Jordan Addison. They both had fantastic games. So congrats to Richard, Mike, and Scoots. You were the 3 who guessed it right. I already added $5 to your thing. But yeah, when I sent this out, Richard said, no one bet on my team. I'm benching all my players. I'm already in the playoffs, so I don't need to start anybody, and I don't need to win. And luckily, we made this bet, I guess, because otherwise he would have benched all his players, and he would have missed the playoffs because he did need to win. I mean, he needed to win or get points, but he was not qualified for the playoffs already.
I guess I didn't follow it closely enough. I didn't realize all that went down. I didn't see any of that.
Yeah, he was telling everyone not to bet on his team because he didn't want to. He had a lot of buys and he didn't want to drop anybody to get an active roster, so he wasn't going to. But I think he thought, and I don't know why he thought this, but he thought the top 2 teams from each division go to the playoffs, and me and Ashley couldn't catch him. So he thought he was already in.
Oof.
So yeah, I sent several texts out explaining to him how it was working, and that he kind of needed to win because if he didn't win, there were like 4 other teams that had more points, and if they win, if any one of them won, they were going to knock him out.
Sure.
So he put together a roster. He cracked 90, cracked 110. He beat me. So my season ended with 3 wins total.
I was looking at his team this morning when I was going through for the other part we're going to do for the other episode, but it's not like Jordan Addison was like crazy amount of points. Like, how in the world did he even get over 100? And then I looked like, oh, Jordan Addison was like 37 of it or something like that. So yeah, Addison had a huge week.
It was mostly those 2,
right? Everything else is kind of just minimal.
Yeah, but so next week's fab bet, I already sent this out in the group chat, but there's 4 teams on bye, 2 in the winners bracket, 2 in the losers bracket. That's Jim and Carson's in the winners bracket, and myself and Ashley in the losers bracket. So I just asked everyone to pick who they thought would have the highest score when it does not matter. So I think most of not most, but a lot of the bets are in already.
Yep.
So that's the fab betting. We'll go on to the Malort shot betting. So for anyone that listened last week, we bet on Packers versus Lions. Obviously, I took the Packers. Jim took the Lions. So I'll do my shot, but we're going to talk about NFC North in the next section, so I'll just do it after that. And next week's bet, we're going to keep with the Lions, I guess. We're just going to do Bills versus Lions. So I'm going to take the Bills. Jim's going to take the Lions. It's the very high over-under. It should be an exciting game. It's game of the week. I'm excited to watch it. So I'll be watching this one regardless. It's 2 very good teams.
I think this is like right now the way both teams are playing. I'd say this is the Super Bowl preview at the moment. Like these seem like the 2 best teams. I don't think the Chiefs can beat the Bills if the Bills are playing well. I think they need the Bills to have just like a really big down game to beat them. So I'd say Bills are definitely the favorite in the AFC, in my opinion.
I feel like if the Bills get stuck going to Arrowhead, and if you guys beat them, they probably will be going to Arrowhead, like guaranteed. True. I don't know if they'll beat the Chiefs.
Well, they beat the Chiefs, so they can tie the Chiefs. But yeah, that's true. They'd be like a game ahead of them.
But if
Or
you
2
guys
games
beat
ahead.
them, then they got 3 losses then, right?
Yeah, so they'd be 2 games
Yeah, they're 2
behind.
games down. I don't
They
know
would
who the
need the
Chiefs are
Chiefs
gonna
to
lose
lose
to.
2 out of their last 5 or 4, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll see what happens with that. I would like to see the Bills go rather than the Chiefs or
I
the
don't wanna see the
Ravens.
Chiefs again.
Yeah.
I'm getting kinda sick of them.
But who do we have in the AFC? It's Bills, Chiefs, or Ravens? Steelers.
Steelers are
Steelers have been
playing
looking
pretty
hot.
good. I mean, Wilson has really
Yeah.
elevated the offense there, so, I mean, their defense can play with anybody, so, yeah, I think they have a shot. They'd probably be underneath those 3, but I think they would
Yeah.
be close. Um, yeah, I'd say those 4 would be the teams I'd think of. Trying to think if there's, like, a team we're missing, but,
No, I mean there's
no
like
one
the
in really the AFC South, like, that
yeah,
division's
there's the Texans, but
garbage.
that's a joke. I don't think they're not gonna be competitive in the playoffs.
No, they haven't played well all year.
Yeah, not this year anyways. They might be something in the near future still because they're young, but
Chargers? I mean, they're okay. I don't know if they're good enough to go all the way, though.
yeah, I don't think they're good enough this year. I'm
I think
surprised they're
they're, like,
this
a year
good.
behind. They can
Yeah,
need another year.
they're good for. I mean, this is a rebuild year for them, straight up. I mean, they let all their receivers go. They kind of were just like they're doing the Harbaugh thing. Like, let's get the line together, and
Yep.
we'll go from there. So they traded away all those expensive receivers, and so the fact they're doing as well as they are is impressive. I will say.
I think year 3 is when you're gonna see that team really kinda
Yep.
take and soar. Yeah. I think you
Yep.
get one more year of kind of like maybe what the Lions were last year, where it's like maybe you surprise people and you almost get there, but the 3rd year is where it's gonna take off, and, like, that's gonna be the team that everyone's gonna start looking at as, like, a real big contender.
See what happens with them. Let's just jump into the NFC North for now.
The Bears still suck. The Bears still suck.
So the first game we'll talk about was the first game that happened. It was last Thursday, so it was a while ago now. Trying to keep it fresh in my mind, but we had the Lions versus the Packers. The Packers lost this one, 34-31. I got a whole bunch of notes on this one. I kind of did this after the game, so I wouldn't forget about everything. But so Detroit's third string defense, I guess, what you guys are rolling out there against us, or
And we
D
had
line,
14
anyways, not
defenders on
defense.
IR, and I would
Yeah,
say there was, like, 7 starters missing.
yeah. I mean, you had some corners and safeties, but your D line was in shambles.
Yeah,
But
I don't think they had any starters from their front 7 except for Campbell by the middle part of the game because Lee McNeil left. Everyone else would have been a starter in the beginning of the year.
yeah, but I mean, I'll third string or not, I don't know if it's your scheme. I don't know if our O line was just awful because the last Thursday, because they haven't been bad most of the year. But dude, Jordan Love was getting pressured a ton, at least in the first half, especially. They were all over him. As soon as the ball was snapped, they were getting through our center like every time. It
I
was
actually
it was intense.
I watched a video of someone showing, like, that what was going on, and there was, like, our defensive tackle was almost over the line. Like, he was just, like, right next to the ball. Like, he was just pushing encroachment, like, every time. He knew their snap count. Like, he literally would as the ball was snapped, he would already be past your center shoulder, and the ball was, like, just touching Jordan's hand. So that guy was literally, like, already pushing back,
Hmm.
trying to block him. That's like our 5th string defensive tackle or something. His name's O'Connor. I don't even know his first name. Never even really saw him before, but I think he just had, like, an out of body experience. Like, it was ridiculous what he was doing on a on snap basis against the Packers the whole first half. I think it slowed down the second half. Maybe you guys started getting him with the snap count a little bit more, but yeah, that was a real big surprise. I don't know how that happened. That guy was just going crazy for the whole game.
Yeah, I mean, it looked like they knew something. 'Cause like you said, like as soon as the ball was snapped, there was at least one dude through the line.
Yep.
Before we were standing up to blocking, I felt like there was a guy halfway through the line already, and then 2 guys try to shove him and pick it up, but it's too late. Like the whole shit falls apart after that. And that's why Love couldn't complete any passes. I mean,
Oh
the,
yeah.
the like I said, the Packers they struggled bad in the first half. They had 3 punts and a fumble. It, it was way too slow of a start. It's really what cost us the game. We started way too slow because we picked it up in the second half. Looked a lot better. We had the lead twice in that game in the
Yeah.
second half. But when you start that slow, it's just hard to get back into them. Goff, he did throw a pick in the second half, so that brings him only one shy of Jordan Love on the season. Everyone loves to love Jordan Love's interceptions, but Goff's only one behind now. Love's been on a good streak. He hasn't thrown one in quite a while. Packers D, they actually did a pretty good job stopping Sonic and Knuckles over there. They also did a pretty good job shutting down Amon-Ra and Williams. I mean, the damage was done. Laporte has some big catches, and some dude named Tim Patrick was having a career day that day. We shut down a lot of the key guys. Like, your run game didn't get going. I mean, it was still good, but it wasn't like you guys normally do. And I was pretty happy with what we did to the run game, but
It was more of like a death of 1,000 cuts. We weren't really like making big plays or anything. We were just kind of, slowly gaining yards on the ground, maybe like a yard or less carry than we're normally used to. And they weren't hitting the big deep shots like they do. So I think the Packers defense really played well. But the thing is the Lions had the middle of the field open all game. I don't know if you guys just have injured linebackers. I know some of them are injured. I don't know how bad that is, but it just seemed like the Lions knew that you guys couldn't stop them over the middle. And that's where the Lions like to feast. If the Lions are going to feast like that, that's what they're going to do. They're just going to slowly, just march down the field because they always play 4 downs. So like that play style fits in exactly what we want to do.
Yeah, I mean, I was just happy the running backs never got any of those huge gash plays. I mean, like I said, I was happy with what the defense did there. Just, we were down 2 of our starting cornerbacks, so yeah, sometimes there's going to be open receivers like that.
Yep.
The notes I have in this one, the Lions went for 4th down 5 times in this game. They converted 4 of them. So they went 4 out of 5 on 4th down. I mean, this is huge. This is the difference in the game by a huge margin, because 2 of them were for touchdowns. So 2 of your touchdowns were on 4th down. Then a third one was on that game-winning drive that allowed you to just run the clock to 0 and ice the game with no seconds left on the clock. We did stop you on one of them, and that one was on your own 30-yard line when you failed to convert it. And that did give the Packers a pretty damn easy touchdown on that one. I'm curious what your thoughts are on these, namely the game-winning one, because that one was very interesting to me. It's very questionable to me on that last one that they did. And then also when they're on your own 30-yard line. I mean, when you're 4th and goal on the 2-yard line, I get that. That makes sense. Mm-hmm. That's what you guys do. Go for the touchdown rather than the field goal. And even if we get it, we're backed up into our own end zone. It's not that unconceivable that you'll get a stop and get the ball back on your own 40 or the 50 or something like that. But yeah, those 2 in particular, I'm just curious what you thought about them.
So I think for one, Dan gets more aggressive when he feels like he needs to. And I think with the defense being as injured as it was, he was more aggressive than this game. I think he would have been if the defense was fully healthy. So keep that in mind. I think that's why he was more aggressive. I actually didn't like the 30-yard one originally. And this is when I kind of changed my opinion of it. When it first happened, I was watching the play. I was like, man, this just seems like too reckless. I don't get it here. But then I started thinking more of it. I think what Campbell realized is he had a touchdown to give. I think he knew he could give up a touchdown there because he knew what the game was going to go back and forth. He knew his defense was going to stop the Packers. He knew both teams were going to get field goals or touchdowns probably for the next couple drives. And that what that did is I think it reset who had the ball at the end of the game. So I think that's how he approached that. I think he knew the Packers would probably have 2 more possessions after that, and the Lions would have 2 more possessions, and he wanted to be the team with the ball at the end. I think that's why he did that, but I did hate the call at the beginning. So maybe that's just me trying to overanalyze it, but I think Dan Campbell's smart enough to think of that and understand that he's always very smart with game sense when it comes to having the ball in the right situation at the right time. The other one, the 4th down to win the game, I absolutely loved it. I guess it wasn't even Dan Campbell's idea. It's been coming out in media that it was actually Jared Goff that wanted to do it, and Campbell let him do it. So that's just a coach believing in their player. I liked it because I didn't trust our defense. I was talking about last week. So I liked the aggressiveness. And I think that was the difference of them going in overtime or winning the game. So I was a big fan of that. I didn't think you guys would stop us another time with a short yardage. It's just, we're going to get those, probably 9 out of 10 times. So I was for it. And it was only it wasn't even a full yard, right? It was like inches.
How far you had to go on that one? I honestly don't know. I mean, I think you got 4 yards out of it.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure though it was it wasn't a full yard. It was half a yard or something. So I think if it was a longer than a yard, like one of those long yards, it might have been different. I think it was a very short yard. So that also helped, I think, to call that play there.
I don't understand that last one. Like, I don't get it at all.
Yeah.
Like, it's to go for it. If you turn it over there, the Packers only need to go like what 30 yards, and they're in field goal
Yeah.
range. So like, I'll play 3 plays. Like we'd have 30 seconds. We didn't have timeouts, but
Mhm.
one play can chunk you that many yards. Like you could have lost the game on that play if you turned it over there.
Oh, absolutely. I think
Turnover
that's
rundowns.
all part of it. Yeah. You got to hope the defense makes a stop at that point. I mean,
But
you guys didn't have any.
if you trust your defense to make a stop, why not just kick the field goal and give us the ball on the 25?
I think that's it. I don't think he did trust the defense. So if you don't trust the defense, you just go for the field goal there.
So if you don't trust, yeah, but you're only trusting. But to go for it is the same concept almost. Is like because now if you don't trust the defense, then you're pretty much saying if we don't get this fourth down, we're going to lose the game.
Well,
You know what I mean? Because if you don't
what are
trust
the
the
odds
defense
of?
to stop us from driving the field all the way down to kick a field goal,
I
you don't
guess
trust
I
the
look
defense
at
to
it
stop it.
almost. I don't even focus at that part as much as I focus on. It was definitely like shorter than a regular yard, and I bet you a 4th and 1 there for a yard is probably like a 70% success rate. And then you cut that in half. That's probably going to be even higher than that. You take in the consideration like who the Lions' offensive line is. I think that becomes a pretty high, like mid 80s decision to make that. So it's an
There's so many
80
things that can
plus
go wrong
percent
though.
chance to win the game compared to if you do the other way and you kick the field goal. Like how likely are the Packers to march down the field and kick a field goal by in 40 seconds?
In 40 seconds, not very. No timeouts though. I mean, seems like not very likely. And
I
even
don't
then,
know.
that only gets us to overtime. Like you
Yeah.
still would have another shot to if you win the coin toss. You're on the field. I guess if we win the coin toss, you're not trusting anyone to get stopped, and we could just win the game straight up. But
I feel like I've just seen it so many times where the teams they kick the field goal there, kick it to a really good quarterback who's playing really well, and then they just march down the field, kick the field goal. Or there's a pass interference and there's like a Hail Mary and they lose the game. It just I guess
true.
it just seems like with how dominant the Lions are in that situation, like they are what's the best team in that situation are the Lions? I mean, other than the Eagles, like probably the Lions, just with how good our offensive line is and like
Oh, if we're
having
getting like a 4th and 1 or a fourth and
right.
short.
Like I said, I think it's just
Yeah,
the odds
true.
of it are very high that we make it. And I think after hearing the story that it wasn't even Dan's idea, he's just trusting Goff. I think I like that more because it's like the coach just believing in his team and his players and like showing that. So I think that's a powerful message to his team too moving forward.
True.
And I,
But he
I think it
trusted
also,
Goff, and then Goff
huh?
fucking fell down on the snap
Right, that's true.
and almost fucking blew the game.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. And I'm sure you've been pissed, but another thing about Dan Campbell compared to like we're talking about the Bears coach, Flus later in the year, 100%. If that happened, that would have never came out. I bet you Dan Campbell would have taken the full blame for it. Even though he'd let Goff make that decision to take and go for it. I don't know. I just like it. I think it really helps with the team. I think it's also why the team is playing so well as they do. Is I think they know that their coach believes in them. I think that just kind of helps. He lets them be more aggressive. I think it's kind of like has a placebo effect on the team, and it just helps carry.
I'll have to ask you again when it doesn't work if you liked it. I guess it's easy to
I
say
think
like
he's been
because it
doing it his
worked,
whole career. He
but
was
if
he was. I loved it when we were bad and it was failing. I actually did love it. I've always liked it.
it makes more it almost makes more sense to do when you're bad. See, like the underdog team, you're
Well,
trying to
that's
win,
what
you're
a lot of
trying to
people
come
thought it
up.
was
But
going to
you
turn.
guys aren't that anymore. Like you're the most dominant offense in the NFL by a long shot.
And it's slowed down a little bit. It has. If you look at what he did in the beginning when we were worse, it was definitely happening more. But I think now it's like if you look at the situations, I think he just goes off of feel sometimes, and doesn't he always go off of just percentages? Because I think the percentages can change depending on who you are and who you're going up against. So I think all that stuff comes into play, and it just I don't know. I've always kind of preferred the aggressiveness. I've always liked the NFL pushing more for the analytics side of it. And I think Dan Campbell is kind of like a mix of like football guy plus analytics. And he kind of goes against the analytics sometimes, just going off of his gut. I kind of like it. I think it's how coaches should react.
Okay.
I'm
Like
sure
I
it's
said,
good.
I'll,
It's
I'll
gonna.
ask again. I'll ask again when he goes for it and things go wrong.
I normally
It's-
look at it before it even happens, and I make an opinion each time. And I would say most of the time, I would go for it. There's definitely some times, like I said, the 30-yard line, I wouldn't have. Every other one of them, I would have done. Um, And I think in most of the time, I'm like close to like 3 out of 4. There's always like one though. I'm like, I don't know if I would do that. It seems a little aggressive. He gets a little more aggressive than I even like sometimes.
Yeah, the other three made perfect sense to me, but it was just those two I found very
Well, why do you like the
head-scratching.
30-yard line one then on our 30?
I didn't like that one. I didn't
Oh, I
like
thought
that
you
one. I
said you
didn't
like.
like the end of the game one. But
Oh, I thought you said you
they
like.
did it 5 times, but
Yeah.
the other three made sense. I mean, two of them you were on
Oh, okay.
you were on like the 2-yard line for two of them.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, take the stab. It's a fucking touchdown. If you turn it over, we're like I said earlier, we're back up in the end zone. Like it's not those ones. I'm all for those.
Yeah, and I think those are all pretty standard now. I think the NFL pretty much all goes in those situations. You know, a
Yeah.
couple of years ago, teams weren't, but I think almost every team does now.
I mean, honestly, before you got the ball back on that last drive, we had it. We were third. I think we were we were first and goal at one point, but we got backed up, and it was like it would have been fourth and like can't remember, we were on like the 12-yard line.
Yeah,
But it was near the end of the game, and we kicked the field goal to tie it.
Yep.
And at that point, I was like, man, we should have just fucking gone for it. Like I feel
Yeah.
like we give the Lions the ball back, we're gonna fucking lose this game. And we did give the ball back, and we lost the game. I was like, God fucking damn it! Should have.
I mean that's the same as going for it on that fourth. I think that's the same idea.
We were way further back, but yeah, I guess I can see it from that perspective. It's like, God, if we give them the ball back, we're gonna fucking lose. We cannot give them the ball back. Tied, and we did, and we lost. So I was like,
Yeah.
I understand if we didn't kick that field goal and we turn it over, then we automatically lose. But yeah, I guess I can see it as the fan perspective then.
Yeah, there's been a lot of talk about it. It's been very interesting just seeing like there's been people in the media just saying like how terrible Dan Campbell's a coach now and like how he's going to cost the Lions the Super Bowl because of just like the recklessness and like I don't know. It's interesting.
Sometimes it is reckless. I mean,
I think it is sometimes. Yeah, I think he gets a little crazy.
But it's working for now. It's working
He's
for
lost
now.
games. He's lost games over it.
That Cowboys game last year comes to mind from
There's
it.
been multiple of them. I would
time
say
they
he
went
lost
for
the
it.
NFC Championship game. He did some crazy shit in that game.
Yeah,
which
you guys
cost
did
him.
turn it over a couple times, but I mean,
He made some
that was
fourth
part
down
of it.
calls that were risky. He wanted to try to ice the game, and he failed twice. So
Yeah, kinda
I
let
think
the
he
Niners
does get a
back
little
in it.
reckless, and I wasn't happy about some of those in that game. So, live by the sword, die by the sword. That's Dan Campbell.
I guess so. Yeah, he ain't gonna change. It's clearly what they do.
Yep.
Like it or hate it. Yeah, I mean, I guess as the Packer fan, just straight up, it sucks to lose this matchup because that just completely eliminated our chance of winning the division. So we're out on that. We're still almost certainly going to be in the playoffs with 9 wins and 4 games to go. All we got to do is win probably like one more, and we'll be in. But I mean, I like what I saw from this game. I'm actually higher on the Packers now than I was before this game.
Yeah.
Even though it's a loss. I mean, we were down 0-10 against the Lions, and most teams that are down 0-10 the Lions get their fucking asses handed to them so far this year. And we came back. We had to lead twice in this game. It was at Ford Field. Like I said, you guys are the hottest team in the NFL, and we compete. We were right there with you until the very last second of the game. I was very worried about this game. This was a test for us, and I knew the whole time there was a good chance we would come out with an ass whooping, just getting fucking embarrassed and being like, "Fuck, we're not as good as I thought we were." But they played well. Their defense was pretty good. They slowed the Lions down. What they like to do, it just wasn't quite enough. But I did like it.
It was an incredible game. I was kind of curious how you were gonna feel about your Packers after it because when I went on Reddit, it was like there was a fire going on. Like Packer fans were going crazy, and like
It
to
hurts.
me, like it was a great game. Like it was an
Yeah.
awesome game. Like, and from where these teams are position wise, I feel like the way you came out of it, I would feel encouraged because like really, you guys were a play away from winning this game against, like you said, the hottest team in the NFL, the best record in the NFL, like a team that people think is going to win the Super Bowl. So like if you're a play away from beating a team that people think is going to be the Super Bowl favorite, I mean that means you're a pretty damn good team. And you guys could potentially see us again. You know what happens when teams play 3 times. I mean, it's actually, I guess, not like as good as people think it is. Generally, the team wins the 3rd time, I guess, more often, but still, it's another time that you guys could possibly play us. And I would not be confident again. Like you guys are top to bottom a great roster, and I think if love gets hot, you can beat anybody.
Yeah. Well, for now, I gotta take my shot on the Lord. Packers couldn't quite pull it off. Yeah, I mean, day of, and even the next day, yeah, you're feeling the pain. But the more you think about it, the more you're like, you know what, that was a good ass game. Packers played well.
I think it's hard for some fans because, like, there's still fans that you can tell are, like, willing to accept that Detroit might just be the better team now. I think
I
that was
mean,
what you saw on Reddit. It's just like it's been
they
how many years of dominance against us, and, like, it's the little brother finally kinda came back and started punching again.
they are the better team right now. I mean, any Packer fan that says otherwise is lying to themselves. That doesn't mean
Yeah,
we can't beat you. It just
right.
you guys are better right now. That's how it works in the NFL. But yeah, cheerio, I'm down in this thing.
I wanna see you guys play the Vikings again.
That should be another good game. 'Cause yeah, we'll get to the Vikings in a second, but I'm getting pretty high on the Vikings now too. They've been impressive.
Yeah.
But up first, we got the Bears. The Bears versus the Niners. This one was just embarrassing for the Bears. They lost 13-38. I believe at halftime, the Bears had 2 yards of offense. 2
4
yards.
yards to 310.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
they just got their asses kicked. The Bears have been looking promising, I thought, in the last like 3 games when they played the divisional teams. I mean, they almost beat the Packers, they almost beat the Vikings, and they almost beat the Lions. Like 3 very good teams, and every single game it came down to the last second, straight up
Arguably, they
overtime
should have
against the
won all
Vikings.
3 of those games, you know?
Arguably, yeah.
Yeah.
Just without poor coaching, they probably would have beaten
I would say they won 2
the
out of 3.
Packers and the Lions if their coach didn't fuck it up for them. Because
Agreed.
the Packers game was the same thing. I mean, they could have ran another play, got a yard closer for that field goal, and the field goal goes in because they fucking hit the crossbar on it.
Yep.
Don't fuck up the timeout against the Lions, and you could have at least gone to overtime. I guess they might have lost in overtime.
It
But
definitely should have been an overtime game, though. Like, that
at
should have
least.
played out as an overtime game. Yeah, at minimum.
And they've been coming, but they were hot. If they win the coin flip at the end, who knows what would have happened there for the Bears? I mean,
Yeah.
they were incredibly hot in the second half of that game. But anyway, back to the current game that they played. Like I said, I was expecting more of them. I picked them straight up in our pick'em league because the Niners have been looking worse and worse every week, and the Bears have been looking better and better. I thought they'd keep the momentum rolling, but it looked bad. Williams, he got sacked a whole bunch. He had a fumble. Their defense is giving up points. It's just, yeah, the Bears, they got a ways to go. I don't know what to say about them for this season. It's keep practicing. They'll get a
I
good
still
draft
think
pick.
it's a lot of it's coaching. You can't fix the coaching and, just by firing the head coach. If anything, it's
No.
going to get worse. So I think they're a team that we should still be worried about next year as NFC North fans. I still see a lot of talent in Caleb. I think this is just kind of like the stress of losing those 3 games almost just kind of like left their shoulders because their head coach got fired, and they almost came into this game too laxative and just
Could
got
be.
kind of hit really hard. Because I mean, it's hard to play 3 division games in a row and lose like they did. It's almost like they kind of had to have this game, in my opinion. So I don't really chalk this up to more than just something like that. Maybe I'm wrong, but I just think there's some emotion involved in here that allowed the Niners just to kind of just mop them up for a game.
Yeah, I mean, that's the way it rolled. I mean, also their head coach right now was a passing coach 3 weeks
Yeah.
ago. It was like, hey, your
Who
OC
is
got fired, your head coach got fired, and he's like, bump, bump, bump. It's like, the
This
promotion
guy just came out
changed.
of nowhere. Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah. They need some big changes. I would like, if I were a Bears fan, I would like to see them do kind of what the Lions did, and then go off, get a GM from a good team, and then we'll get a head coach from a team that was like building one up, kind of like Dan Campbell. I just think that's the right way to do. Like, get these guys. Don't get these guys that are just like fresh offensive coordinators that are ready to go. Like those guys just seem to be too like hit and miss. Like, try to get
Yeah.
someone who's more of like a player's coach that can build
Yeah.
up the team. And then you have 2 people from different organizations working together. I think that works a lot better than like, oh, let's just go take the New England Patriots and get 2 of their guys, like what we did before we got Dan Campbell. I just feel like that never works. I think you need to have
Oh.
2 different opinions that still have like a similar goal in mind to really make things work well.
Yeah, they need a coach that can, someone like Dan Campbell, someone that can like change the culture, change the
Yep.
attitude of the players.
Right.
Like, we're not fucking losers anymore. We
Yeah,
can
or
be
just like
good. We're gonna
Harbaugh
start
and the
fucking
Chargers.
winning some games. Yeah, like that kind of
It's
coach.
literally just a mindset change. Like, it's just
Yeah.
it's the team got worse. I think we would argue, right? Like, I think they got worse moving from the roster that he had beforehand because he had to change everything. He got rid of all, like, if you want to
Mhm.
lack of a better word, the cancers on the team. And he's like, this is how we're going to play. This is how you're going to act. And this is how this team's going to work. If you don't want to do that, you're not going to be here. But the people that
Yep.
buy in, it works because it's worked everywhere he's been.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they definitely
Yeah.
knew that. Did you hear that he was actually interested in the Bears job supposedly?
I have
And
heard that rumor.
they just said basically, no, we don't want you. It's like, oh my gosh, that's true at all. Wow, the
If
Bears
you're a
are
Bears fan, that's just got to eat at your soul. Like
right.
that guy wanted to come here. They'd probably be in playoff contention right now if he was there.
I would say so. The talent's there. Like I said, the
Yeah.
talent is there. They just need someone to help them realize how to play football.
That's something. If that's true, that's really something that they turned him down. And it might have just been like, he wants this much money, and the owners are cheapskates, and they're like, nah, we ain't paying you that much.
I think
It's
a lot
like,
of it he might have wanted
okay.
extra control. He might have wanted the Belichick thing where he had some GM power or like he's over the
Could
GM.
be.
And I think that might have rubbed some owners off the wrong way, especially because like he did kind of have a bad exit in San Fran. Like, he got a bad rap as being kind of a hard nose, hard ass. Like this guy's only gonna last for like 6 years and then he gets fired and a new guy gets brought in. Like he's kind of too much. He's like Belichick without the 20 years of success, right? He does have a little bit of an old school mindset, but I think he's more. I shouldn't say that. He's definitely more of a rah guy than Belichick, but he
I
definitely
think so.
does wear thin on people. It's happened multiple places he's been.
It wears thin when you're not winning, but if you're
Right.
winning, that kind of coaches, they love you.
Exactly. And that's pretty much anything. So
Yeah.
either
that is
way, you
kind of
should have
anything.
fucking signed him if he wanted to come there. Like
I
that was
would think
pretty
so.
much a no-brainer decision. in my opinion.
Yeah, last matchup we had in the NFC North, we had the Vikings versus the Falcons. So Kirk returned home to Minnesota, and the crowd just booed him. I don't know why. I feel like everyone's better off. You should be happy to be rid of him. He served you well for quite a while, and it's not like
Well-
he left on bad terms. It was just he wanted more money, and the Vikings wanted to start anew. Seemed weird to boo the man.
I know sometimes like they'll cheer like when they get announced from the tunnel, but then they'll boom as they take the field for the first play of the game. I know that's like tradition. I don't know if that happened here because I've been hearing the same thing. Like it was just, oh, he got booed, but I'm curious if they cheered him when he first got announced because I do know teams have done that. I think that happened to Tom Brady when he got brought back to New England. They booed him when he came out on the field, but they cheered him obviously when they first announced his name and were like, "Hey, look, it's Tom Brady," and everyone loved it. So it's kind of like you're the enemy now afterwards. We still
Yeah.
honor you, but you're the enemy. I wonder if that happened here. But if they didn't, that sucks for Kirk. I mean, that guy put a lot into that team to just be like booed in a
Yeah,
game
that's what I'm
that
saying.
wasn't even started yet. Yeah,
Maybe that's what happened. I don't know. I mean, either
I
way,
hope it is.
yeah, I hope so too. Yeah, Kirk. Speaking of Kirk, he looked just terrible in this game. He threw 2 picks. I think he's got 8 picks in the last 4 games and no touchdowns.
Yeah.
The dude's just been terrible.
It's like second in NFL history, like pace for 4
Yeah.
games. Yeah.
He's Jackie's fantasy quarterback, so I hear about it every week. Like, well, at some point you should probably just drop him and move on. Pick up a waiver guy.
I think he's lost it. I think that
Yeah.
injury might have stopped him from being able to get enough spin on the ball. I mean, he had some good games this year, so maybe I'm wrong, but when I was watching that game, it just didn't look like he could get the velocity he wanted to get. It didn't look like he could step in, and that's what I saw earlier in the year, where I haven't watched a lot of games since, so I don't know if that like got fixed. Maybe he re-aggravated something. I don't know, but it didn't look right. There's something going on there.
Well, I mean, I saw a lot of floaty balls. Like,
Yep.
just, they're kind of hanging. Like, that doesn't seem like you should be doing it that way. But I don't know the plays. I don't know what they're calling, so I can't say for sure. But and also it's the older you get, and when your leg get fucked up, like it's hard to do like those play action things where you have to roll out a little bit. And I think he's suffering from. I think Rodgers is suffering from it too. Like it's you can't. You're just older.
These guys are our age, like Cousins
Yeah,
is
no.
probably like 36, 37. It's like I don't play football and I'm starting to feel pain. Like I can't imagine playing football for 15 plus years and then take on a serious Achilles injury. Did he get ACL? Is ACL injury?
I think it was his Achilles. I think it was the same thing that happened to
Yeah,
Rodgers.
it's Achilles,
wasn't it?
right? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he can't push off of it. So yeah, it's like it's a serious injury to have that late and to think about going and playing football right afterwards. I mean that
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
just also you're
Yeah,
older,
I'm
like
ready.
you're naturally slower, and just like imagine getting creamed by a fucking NFL lineman when you're 20
Right.
or young 20s compared to now that we're in our 30s. Like, I wouldn't be fucking walking for the next
Well,
2 weeks probably.
This used to be the norm. Quarterbacks didn't last past
Yeah.
35. I think Tom Brady kind of warped people's perception. Like he is legitimately a freak of nature. Like, yeah, he wasn't like Michael Jordan when he was just the best athlete on the court, right? He just had longevity, that we've never seen other than maybe like Jerry Rice, right? Like Jerry Rice
Yeah.
had like crazy success in his 40s, and no one's come close to that. I think that's just what Tom Brady's going to be, and I think we're trying to correct now back to being like, oh yeah, quarterbacks just don't play till 40. That just doesn't
Yeah.
happen. So yeah, I mean, Aaron Rodgers is another example, like you said, he's having the
Even
same problem right now.
even Peyton Manning, how long did he play? Like he was like 37.
He was
He
like
wasn't even close
38.
to Brady. Yeah,
He
but
was like
Brady went
38, I think, in the
into his
last year.
40s.
But he had that
But he
crazy neck
sucked.
surgery like a couple years before that, like, and he was like
Yeah,
35. So I mean, there was a good chance that he wasn't going to last as long because everyone knew that. I think
true.
he said he didn't have like full like strength in his hand anymore on his throwing hand.
Yeah, he also sucked his last year. Like they won the
Oh yeah.
Super Bowl, but that was off the defense. I mean, he wasn't good.
But that was 2 years. We talked about that just recently on the podcast. That was
Yeah,
2 years before that, he was the number 1 offense we've ever seen. It
yeah,
literally just it overnight, he lost it, right? When
yeah,
these guys lose it they lose it fast.
yeah. I think that's might be what it is for Cousins. It's a shame, but like I said, maybe franchises will start adapting again, just being like, yeah, once you're 35, we're just not going to pay you that much anymore because we know you're going downhill.
The Jordan Love pick is looking a lot smarter by the day.
Oh yeah, I mean Rodgers this year, he looks awful. I
Yep.
mean, it doesn't look much better than Cousins in all honesty. Actually, this last
I
week was one of his
yeah.
better games. He actually did make some good throws. Still lost. I mean, he still can't move the way he needs to be able to move. But yeah, I mean, back to the Vikings. They looked vastly superior here. Darnold had a fucking hell of a day. He threw 5 touchdowns. I think it was like 300 plus 350 yards. The dude went nuts. I mean, some of those deep balls, the dudes were as wide open as I've ever seen somebody. So I mean, take that
Yeah,
for
there
what
was
it
2
was.
touchdowns that were just like, what did you see the one where Alfred is the last name? It was a corner, and someone showed it on Reddit, like,
I think
literally.
I've seen this.
The
He's
one
like
where, like,
covering the guy from
Addison
like 1 yard off of him, and he
well,
just gets
he,
burned.
like, lost the receiver, it was, one of Jefferson's touchdowns, and he's running, and you'd think you would just run at Jefferson, but he looks
Yeah,
back like he thinks there might be someone underneath him, and then he, like, stops running at Jefferson, he runs to the corner of the end zone, away from Jefferson towards nobody. Like, literally, he ran himself out of the play that he already wasn't even in. Like, there was only one option to get back in the play, and he still did it wrong. And then he turned around and realized that Jefferson was like in the middle of the field and there's no one to the right corner. And I've never seen a worse play in my life. I really don't think. Obviously, we always hyperbole these things because we always go off what we see in the
yeah.
moment. I don't remember seeing someone that confused on a football field, like a professional. Like that was baffling to me. I don't know what happened there, but yeah, that was one of the touchdowns. It was just the worst coverage I've ever seen.
There was another one. They didn't get a touchdown off of it, but same thing. I don't know if it's the same corner, but yeah, he's lined up on the line. I don't know if it was Addison or Jefferson again, but he's lined up like on him, like
Mhm.
right on the fucking line. And so immediately, place that guy fucking takes off. He turns around. He's already like 7 yards behind the guy. So the dude's wide open. Sam Darnold chucks it to him because he's so open, but he underthrows it. So the dude has to
Yeah.
just stop.
Uh,
He just stop and he's standing there as the ball slowly comes down. The
yeah.
corner's trying to catch up to him, but he's like not even close. Then he just fucking falls.
Yep, that's the
It's
Addison
almost like
one.
he was running the wrong. He wasn't even running exactly at him when he just falls. I'm like, what the fuck were you doing? I don't even because it looked like he was the dude's more in the middle of the field. He's kind of
Yep.
running just straight down towards the end zone, not like out, but just like I'm like, I don't know what you're doing, but I think a safety comes up and does tackle him. He didn't get into the end zone on that one,
Yeah,
but
like at the end of the play.
the
Yep,
coverage
that
was
was the
just.
other one.
I was like, how
That
bad?
was
What are you doing? Like,
I don't know
it,
if it was the same guy, but that was Addison on that one, and I remember being like, "That was a terrible throw."
terrible.
That
Yeah,
gets picked, like, 80% of the time, like, everyone's freaking out and cheering, but I was like, I would be horrified, like, I don't want my quarterback ever making that throw, like, that's gonna be bad most of the time, like, yeah, great, it worked, but that's the one that you look at the next day and you're like, "Yeah, I'm
well,
not gonna do that again."
Well, when you burn them that bad, sometimes as the quarterback, it's better just like I could try to lead you, but I
Uh-huh.
might overthrow it, and then we get an incomplete. Versus like if I just make you stop, there's no chance the guy's catching up in time. So we get a
But then you
free
have to worry about the
deep reception.
safety, and the safety, if they have the beat on the ball, that's where they get picked, right?
True, Yeah, I mean,
I don't know.
true,
I just
but I think the safeties were too deep at the time, so they couldn't get there either. 'Cause, I mean, the dude just stood there for several seconds just waiting for the ball because he burned the corner so bad. So obviously the safeties weren't close enough at the time, or they would have had a chance at it. But yeah, it was funny. But I mean, all that aside, I mean the Vikings whoop their fucking asses. They have 2 losses in the season, and like I was gonna say too, like I picked Sam Darnold for MVP as one of my bold predictions. I
Mhm.
honestly think if Josh Allen would have had such a fucking awesome game on Sunday, that Sam Darnold would have poked his nose back into that conversation with this game. It was a fantastic game by him. It was a fantastic game by the Vikings. They looked absolutely dominant. I mean, not that the Falcons are that great, but they whooped the shit out of them.
You can only play the teams on your schedule, and the Falcons have been good most of the year. It's just been a couple bad weeks by Cousins that really kind of tanked their record. Um, yeah, I mean he's been exceptional, and like you said, if it wasn't for Josh Allen, you would probably be hearing him be added to the conversation because he's almost like mimicking Jared Goff stats at this point, like almost the same. And I think he has the most
Yep.
100 pass rating games in the season so far. I mean, that's the stuff that wins the MVP. So yeah, he's not far off of it. He's played great. I think the real question is, are they going to resign him? I don't think they're going to.
I don't think so. I would
I
think
don't think they're
they.
going to.
How do you? Okay, so my question is, they have JJ McCarthy. Is that the
Yeah.
guy they drafted? Yeah. Do you think, like, what's the best you could hope from JJ McCarthy? I feel like it's what Sam Darnold's doing. Or like, do you think JJ McCarthy can be better
I
than
think
what's currently happening?
I think Darnold's still limited. I think a lot of it is it's a very quarterback friendly offense. I think it's kind of the stats
I'm
are
not
better than the
disagreeing with
play.
that.
So I think that's part of it. So I think you have to kind of like look at that Darnold. I think they know they can get Darnold's play from McCarthy or something similar, and he's cheaper, younger, and they can kind of build around him more. Whereas like Darnold, it's like he is still kind of a finished product. You kind of know what he is, even though he was a high upside guy and he needed a couple of years. I think you're seeing kind of like his upside. I just don't see him enough to win games. I think he's I hate to use the phrase quarter or game manager because I don't really think that's a good phrase because like I feel like great quarterbacks are game managers, but I mean he doesn't really do anything that like puts him apart to like win a game. I feel like he gets the most or he gets what he gets everything he can out of the players around him, but he doesn't elevate the players. Maybe that's a better way to look at it. Like I think Goff kind of elevates players around him a little bit more, even though I think they're kind of in the similar wheelhouse, like statistically. I think Goff helps the players around him play better. I don't think the same as Darnold, but maybe Darnold's getting there because Darnold has been playing really well lately. But I just think they can mimic the play style. I think they can or mimic the play with McCarthy. And I think you got Daniel Jones there. I think he's going to resign. I think that's also why Daniel Jones went there. I think he was kind of told like, there's a good chance that we don't sign Darnold, and then you can be here. And then if McCarthy fails, and you can be the next Sam Darnold. It just I don't know. It seems like a lot of money to pay when they could easily sit with McCarthy and then do the whole like, hey, we have a rookie quarterback for 3 years, and we can just
Yeah.
throw money at the rest of our team, and you have a Super Bowl window. And maybe the conversation comes down, do you think you can win a Super Bowl with Darnold? If you think no, I think then you have to go with McCarthy.
Yeah, I guess my question with McCarthy though is like, I can't realistically, I can't expect him to be better than what Darnold is doing.
Yeah.
So it's like, why wouldn't you pay the person we've already seen do this for almost an entire season? And if he fucks up big at the end of the year and chokes in the playoffs, then maybe be like, all right, we're moving on. Because you need to be able to win the playoffs too. I mean, that's
Right.
the whole reason why Dak, I don't think, should have got paid because every time they go to the playoffs, they fucking
And
blow
maybe
it.
that's it. Maybe they get their like out because he gets like a 4 pick game in the playoffs that they lose by a touchdown. And it's like, wow, this is literally the difference of the game. If he has that, then that makes that decision a lot easier, probably. But I don't know. There's just something about him. Even watching him, I think he's much better than he was, obviously, when he was in New York, in Carolina. But there's just something still not right about it. I still see a lot of decisions that are poor decisions. This last game, he was obviously great, but there's been enough games where it's like you watch him, it's like, man, he's a throw or two away from looking like he did in New York, and he's kind of avoided that. Um, it's going to be an interesting conversation, but I really don't think he's going to get resigned. I think they have too much invested in McCarthy, and I think they like McCarthy a lot. I think McCarthy was trending to beat Darnold for the job too, so they know him best. They obviously saw what they saw at
That's
McCarthy, and
true.
that matters a lot too.
Yeah, I'm curious how it plays out. There's really no way to know. I mean, the only way if they go to the Super Bowl though, if they make it to the Super Bowl and lose, even
That's
then he's re-signed. There's no way you let him go.
100%, 100%.
You'd probably trade JJ McCarthy and just try to get a couple of picks out of it. I mean, because you have to sign him at that point. He's going to want at least a 3-year contract, which nullifies.
I mean, he's gonna
JJ
want
McCarthy.
more than 3. I mean, 3 is probably the minimum he's gonna
Yeah.
get. That's. I mean, it's a good problem to have if that comes up.
It is.
Obviously, it'll be an interesting conversation at the time, but yeah, there's some hard decisions there. I'm curious to see what they're gonna do.
I have to.
I love O'Connell. I think O'Connell is gonna get the best of whoever's there, though. I think that's part of it too. I really do think that guy can just put anyone back there, and they're gonna do well.
All right. Well, enough of the NFC North. Let's jump into the fab spending for the week. All I can say about this week is, whoa, this is the biggest free agency period of the whole year.
Oh yeah,
People spent big. One of them apparently might have been an accident. I'm pretty sure it was an accident.
Yeah,
because it makes no sense looking back on it. But we'll start with the big spend of the week was Isaac Garendo went to $55 for Richard. There were a ton of bids on this one, but the next highest was 2 people bid 15. That's poor and Mike. So Richard spent big. He got the guy. Good for Richard. You need him. You had the money. Spend up. I mean, it's the time of the year to spend up if you think there's a guy out there.
yep.
I feel like it's been a kind of inactive waiver thing this whole year. Like, not a lot of running backs were getting hurt, so they weren't like those backups to get. This was finally one of them where it happened, and it's a good team. It's like, oh, 2 running backs got hurt, so nobody had the backup already, and there was a dude to be picked up, and so yeah, there were a ton of bids on it.
Honestly, it's the right play on it. If those other running backs were out for 4 weeks, like we thought that was like the minimum for Mason was 4 weeks.
Yeah,
I think
this guy,
ankle 100%, he's gonna carry you through the whole playoffs. So like, he's been good for his first game.
Mm-hmm.
You have the starter on a very good offense and a team that seems to get the most out of the running back. So that might be an RB1 to finish out the year. So yeah, $55. I'm disappointed. I didn't even look at him to bid. I should have, but I couldn't beat that bid anyway. So I mean, that's how it should be this late in the season. You prove to people like you got to pay the full price or you're not getting them, especially if it's a game changer, and that's who he could be.
I thought there'd be way more bids that were more than that, honestly.
There should have been.
Not more than 55, but more than 15. I'm surprised those were the next 2 highest.
I would have thought over 50 would have been where his like starting point should have been.
I was thinking people were gonna be throwing at least 35. Like I was like, I didn't even enter the running because I was like, I don't have enough.
I should have. I was at like
not gonna bid on
30, and I didn't think 30 would get it, and I was like, whatever. I have enough running backs anyway, so I'm like, I'm not gonna worry about it. But yeah. Everyone should have bid on him. Really, he's the last potential like obvious chance at a RB1.
Even if you don't need him, keep him off someone else's team. Even if you don't think you're gonna start him.
He's the type of player that literally wins fantasy championships.
Yeah.
You get him at the end of the year because you're missing a running back, and they end up getting you 3 like RB1 finishes to finish out the year, and that's enough to set your team above the rest.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. I mean, I think he had like 25 points in his first game. So I mean, if you playoffs happen and he has this fucking monster game, he scores 40 against you, you'll be kicking yourself, being like, "Fuck, I had money, I could have got him, and I let him go to Richard, and now Richard beat me."
The thing in fantasy back in the day was before McCaffrey got there was like they always had injuries. The next man up, everyone would be going for him every year. The Niners running back because they always performed. So
the Shanahan
it should be no different.
Yep. Goes all the way back to the Falcons days. Whoever was running back in there when he was the OC was dominating.
I mean, if you want to go that far, it goes all the way back to his dad. It's all the blocking schemes. His own blocking scheme. Literally, everyone would always take whoever the starter was on the Broncos back in the day because they would be a no-namer. And they would always be one of the best. I remember Michael Anderson is the name I remember. I think he might be somewhat more recent than some of the other ones, but I remember him being...
Was it Michael? I remember Anderson. I don't know if Michael was his first name, but I know who you're talking about.
There was a couple of them, but that was like the last one, I think. But even like 20 years ago, there was always the Denver running back. You always wanted him. Even before like Peyton Manning and stuff. It was just because his dad. It was this own blocking scheme. It's all these years, it's the same thing with them.
But yeah, it was a good pickup. I gave it 2 thumbs up. Next highest we had was Will Dissly for $40 to Vicky. Unfortunately for her, no one else even bid on him, so she could have just got him for free. But that happens sometimes. I believe Vicky
She
said,
claims.
she claimed to bench bid 4. I don't know. She had a lot of money and she didn't need a tight end.
She did bid on like multiple tight ends, so I believe
She
her story.
did.
Yeah, and that was like one of them. And I think she just happened to hit a 0, didn't realize it, and then I told her like, luckily it happened now because you might even be able to playoffs next week, and 2, it's like there might not be another player worth bidding for the rest of the year. So
There's a lot of people with a lot of money because, like I said, there just haven't been any really fantastic waiver wire pickups this year. It didn't seem like.
the best pickups lately have been people that other people dropped, and no one knows even there.
A lot of those this year. Speaking of which, the next highest one was Devontae Smith. He went to my $25 to myself. Again, no one else even bid, so I way overspent. I thought he was worth $25. I think that was the rest of my money.
I would have bid all my money on him. I
Yeah,
didn't know he was out there. I saw you get him. I'm like, what the heck? Like, I would have possibly started him. Like, I think he's that good. So
I believe I did
heck of
start
a
him.
pick for you.
Not that it did me any good, but he might help me prevent taking the Doc Johnson home. So it's worth it. I'm still playing for something. I'm playing
You've been
not
finding
something.
receivers. I mean, you've been finding these ones that people keep
Trying to get
dropping. Like
something,
you are
yeah.
building a receiving core out of trash, but it's your trash now.
Other people's trash can be another man's treasure, as they say. Next highest bid we had Seahawks defense went to $12 to Tiff. I didn't write if anyone else bid on him, but again, end of the season is coming on quick. If you got money, you want a defense that's good for the last couple of games of the year. Nothing wrong with that.
That's what you're looking for right now. You need to get your defenses for playoffs. Tiff is obviously one of the favorites to win it. I would say right now I'd put her number 2 behind me. I think she's a threat. So she needs to get a defense that she can trust every week for the playoffs and see what happens.
They play the Packers this week, so I don't know if she has another defense or if she's just banking on Packers laying an egg this week. But
maybe she has another one. Maybe she's got plans. If it's just for
after
1 week, that seems like a lot. But if it was a good, I don't know what their playoff schedule is. Actually,
they might have a good, maybe the next 2 weeks are fantastic for them. I don't know who they play. So it could be something like that too. I feel like they play the Rams one more time.
I feel like they have a really bad schedule, actually. So she might have just picked them up this week, which if that's the case, I'd give it thumbs down. I never paid $12 for defense for 1 week. But
there are a whole bunch more bids this week, around like $5. People are kind of using a little bit of fan money, but a whole bunch of defense kickers were getting picked up and dropped for about $5. So people weren't putting in the $0 bids this week. They were chucking 5 because everyone has a ton of money and they're finally spending it. Like I said, I think my other league's the same way this year. There's just tons of money. I think Garendo went for like 60 something in that league because people just had so much money left.
It's been a lackluster free agency period. I mean, we were kind of spoiled last year. I think we had 2 really good ones. I know Puka and there was some other big name that
Puka and Kyron, both in the same
team. I drafted, but I was thinking mostly maybe Kyron. HN
was another big one.
That could have been one I drafted. And then dropped. And then he had his big game.
You gave up 1 week too early.
I think I had like a player that was injured for like the beginning of the year and I had to keep him and I dropped HN. I regret it. But obviously it didn't work out too bad because HN got injured originally. But I digress.
So that's the end of the fab for the week. So we'll no trades. Obviously, trades are done for the year, so that section's eliminated. So we'll jump into the injuries. So off the top, one of the big spends of the week, we just talked about him, Will Disley. He suffered a shoulder injury and did not return. So that's a bummer. He spent $40 and might be out. On the same theme, the other big spend of the week, Isaac Garendo, he left the game with a foot injury and did not return. So that's a bummer. Done 55 on that one. He might be out.
That's rough.
You can't predict that. Spend the money if you think the guy's good. Sometimes shit happens. Derek Carr, he suffered a left hand injury. So it's not a throwing hand. They said he also might have suffered a concussion on the same play. So if you're starting Derek Carr, keep an eye on that. Like, next, I don't know if he's on his team.
Maybe just
I think he's gone.
Put him down for the year. Just like let the young guy play and just let Derek get healthy.
Yeah. And then we'll jump into the second half, which are the leg injuries. So we had Jonathan Brooks, running back for Carolina. So he had a non-contact knee injury, which and was carted to the locker room. This sucks. I mean, he was a high draft pick. I think he was the number 1 drafted running back this last year. Is that right?
First running back taken. Yep.
Yeah, we kind of waited all year to see him, and he finally came back a few weeks ago. He's been getting eased in, and now back off the field. And I'm assuming he probably won't come back for
It
the
was
rest
an
of the season.
ACL injury, and I think he re-aggravated it. So
Yeah.
it's a scary thing to do. So hopefully he didn't tear it. But I mean, that's a concern if it's the same injury that he had surgery on.
It sucks. He was promising. I wanted to see what he could do, but we ain't gonna see it this year. Hopefully next year. Then we had Aiden O'Connell. He was carted off the field with his leg in an air cast. Don't expect him back anytime soon. Raiders quarterback for anyone starting him. Look for the backup. We had Justin Herbert. He had a leg contusion. He'll probably play this next week.
He's been injured like all year. I feel like he's been
Keeps
injured
getting
for
hurt.
all year. It's like over like his leg too. So I wonder if that's even like a new injury. That just might be them just throwing it out there every couple.
It could be because he has a plantar fasciitis, I guess, which is
that was it too.
the thing that it never goes away. You just kind of deal with it. And I don't really know what it is. I think it's like the nerves at the bottom of your feet. And it's like some days are bad, some days aren't bad, but then I think it can like fucks up like the tendons or nerves everywhere, and it
doesn't seem to affect them too much on the football fields. Whatever it is doesn't impact them too much.
Yeah, I mean, it
just sucks after.
It was listed as a leg injury, so got it down. But that's all the leg injuries. So we'll all take a moment and pray for those legs.
I'm sending up my prayers. I already prayed for his leg.
All right, and we'll jump into the final section. We got our matchup recaps for the week. So up first, we had myself versus Richard. Richard wins this one, 112.7 to 89.36. So Richard kind of got caught with his pants down in this one. He had to start George Pickens. Like I said, he had a lot of buys. He did pick up some players to get a starting lineup after being texted that he was not already a shoe-in for the playoffs. But Pickens got ruled out shortly before the game. Fab spending had already gone through, so there's nothing he could do about it. So he took a 0 from him. But he did have 2 fantastic scores from Isaac Correndo, his big fab spend, and Jordan Addison several weeks ago, big fab spend from him. They combined for 60 points. On my side, really no highlights. My team stinks.
Hey, you didn't hit 90 points. We should have been on you.
I know, right? I didn't. I don't think I actually did either. Yeah, we should have put it on the 2 worst teams instead of Richard's team. Richard had so many buys. I was like, there's no way I could field the team that'll.
I'm shocked. And then you add in Pickens being injured. Like, it was even worse than it should have been. It's actually incredible that he beat 90 points, in my opinion. I mean, it did take 2 players combined for 60 points. I mean, that's how you do it. But it's like, I didn't know he had players that could do that.
Apparently. Well, he did. I don't know if he has Gruendo anymore. We'll see what happens as the week progresses.
It'll be interesting.
But next matchup, we had Tiff versus Lee. So Tiff wins this one, 143.18 to 141.52. This is a very high scoring one. Tiff pretty much just grabbed the victory from the jaws of defeat in this one. Josh Allen went for 51.88 points and just locked it up. I mean, she was under 100, and then Josh Allen played, and it's like, oh, I guess I win.
He is now the highest scoring, has the highest scoring single point game in fantasy football history for a quarterback.
Yeah. He beat Michael Vick.
Michael Vick, which I never thought was going to get beaten. I watched that game live when it happened. And that was the most incredible game I've ever seen for a fantasy player. And I had him on a team. It was just the greatest feeling ever. So if Tiff was watching the game, she probably was just having a great time. I know how that feels. But it's crazy that he did that. 3 rushing touchdowns, almost 100 yards rushing, 3 more passing touchdowns, 300 plus passing yards. Like, there's only a few players in NFL history that can do that, and he's one of them. So that's what happens. What a crazy good player.
Yeah, I mean, you love those games when Josh Allen turns it on. He's like, all right, I got to put the whole fucking team on my back. I'll fucking do it. Everyone jump on. They'll try to carry us to Vic. They didn't even win the game, but goddamn, it was
when it comes to performance. For fantasy football purposes, they always say this in like NFL. If you needed one quarterback to win a game, and you need the most points possible, I feel like Josh Allen would be that answer in the whole history of the NFL. Like, it's just like he can beat you in so many ways. He might not always have the best season, but when there's just a point when he flips a switch, and I don't think I've seen a better player at the position. He doesn't do it all the time. He's not as consistent as some of the other greats. So yeah, you'll knock him a little bit, but for best player at his peak, I think he's at that position.
Yeah, I can't disagree at all. Tiff, she also had James Conner. He continued to do his thing and just, you know, put up 20 points kind of quietly, uneventfully, just grinds them out and gets it done. Lee actually had a lot of high scoring players in this game too. Devontae Adams, Achan, Kittle, Aaron Jones. They all had a ton of points. So, and his score reflects that he had 141.52. But when one guy on a team gets over 50 points, you're gonna lose.
I mean, that might be a championship game preview right there. I mean, the
It could be.
teams that get hot, that's what we want to see. We want to see 140 to 140. You don't want to
Yeah, right.
see win 100 to 100. These are games we want to see. So, I mean, these are two of the playoff teams. They're getting hot right before the big games. So, keep an eye on these teams.
Up next, we had you. You're playing Mike. Mike wins this one 132.96 to 117.82. So you're on a 2-game losing streak going into the playoffs. Not a good time to be cooling down.
It's not a good time, but as I mentioned, I kind of wanted to almost have my losses now, so I feel like I'm getting them out of the way, I hope. It is a little nerve-wracking. I mean, to be fair, I would not have started the Bills defense if I was actually trying to play for something important. So that kind of killed my score with the -8. But
True.
yeah, makes me worried. Like I said, Tiff's team's good, Lee's team's good, Carson's team's good. You need to have good games to win.
Every team in the playoffs is good. Any one of them could win a game.
No,
So you got to be careful at this point.
I can't have down games. My team
You
is
do have a
pretty
bye,
busy.
so you can have one more down week. Then you gotta
Yep, I
turn
gotta
around after
step it
that.
up, Yeah, that's what I hope happens. I hope I get all the bad games out, the bad mojo, and then play the last 2 games like the best games of the year.
So yeah, Mike, he started the correct quarterback this week, which is good. And partially, helped because Stroud and Daniels are both on bye. But if you started Burrows and he was high scoring, that was good.
I mean, he could have went and got David Carr back,
Yeah, he could have. Yeah, good thing
There was options.
Good thing he forgot about waiver period. Mike, he also had Justin Jefferson. He went for 28.7 in this one. Juan Jennings on the 49ers, he went for 24.5. So he had a very good production from his wide receivers. On your side, Barkley had a pretty quiet game by his standards. I mean, he only had 14.4. I feel like that might be his lowest score of the season.
No, he had a single-digit game
Did he
already,
really?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he had, like, a game where he had, like, 48 rushing yards and, like, 15 receiving yards or something, and
Yeah.
he didn't have many points.
Jamar Chase, he almost made it up for him, though. He pretty much did make it up. He scored 38.1 in our league. It just wasn't quite enough to take it from Mike. Then, yeah, like I put it in here also, you had Buffalo's defense starting. They scored -8, so.
Yeah. No, I kind of knew. Those defenses were picked up for playoffs. They weren't picked up for this week or next week. So
Sure. Yeah.
that's. I knew that was probably not gonna be the best game for them. I didn't expect no -8. I feel like Buffalo's defense is better than that, but yeah, luckily it doesn't affect me.
Yeah, that game got super high scoring. Yeah, Jamar Chase went on a tear. He actually, in my other league, I have him, and I needed it's standard league, mind you, but I think I needed 28 points from him to clinch the first round bye.
Nice.
And he had 30.1 or something like that. I was like, fuck yeah.
That was good. Was that not a PPR league then?
No, it's not a PPR. So
that's rough. That's a hard thing to do in a non-PPR league for a
receiver. Yeah, but I was looking at it and I was like, I'm probably not gonna. I mean, in the playoffs either way. But I'm like, it would be nice to get that first round bye. And I was like, if there's any player you could possibly have on Monday night that could get you 30 points, I'm like, that's the guy you want. I was like, so I do have a shot at it. It's an outside shot, but hey, he did it. So got the first round.
I was debating on making him the fantasy MVP. I just don't think he was consistent enough this year. But like he's had so many games where you're like, yep, I win. Thanks, Chase. Don't have to worry about the rest of my team. Like he's had more of those games than any other player in the NFL this year.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's had a couple like single point games, which kind of hurt, I think. But yeah, he's been great.
Yeah, next match we had Scoots versus Spore. So Scoots wins this one 125 to 105.66. Rashad White, he had a great game for Scoots in Bucky Irving's absence. Bucky Irving left the game. I don't know why this wasn't in my injury report, I guess.
He's gonna have a back injury. They didn't really say if he's gonna be able to play next week, so I'm kind of worried. I think he had like an issue with it earlier in the year, so it might be like a flare up. But I, as a Bucky Irving owner myself, who was really excited for him going to the playoffs, I wouldn't even expect to start him if he's even in the lineup next week. I feel like I have other options I would rely on just because I don't want to
Well,
have a guy that comes in and then leaves right away.
yeah. Well, you got to buy, so you're lucky.
That's true. I get to see
You can
one more
wait to
game.
see this week, which is actually huge as a
Very
Bucky
big
Irving owner.
deal. Very true.
But as far as Scoots goes, if Bucky Irving's out, Shad White's getting production. But if he's in, then Shad White's kind of questionable as a starter. So we'll see what happens with that. Tyreek, he had his first 20-plus point game. It's his first one since week 1 for Scoots. I mean, if he's getting hot, now's the time you want him to get hot. In the playoffs, you need some points from the guy. If he hasn't been doing much for you this year, maybe he'll turn it around.
I mean, if you go off of last year's season, this guy is a number 1 overall pick quality player. So he's very capable of doing this for 3 weeks in a row.
And that's all you need. Just 3 more weeks.
Yep.
3 more wins, and you're the grand champ. We had CeeDee Lamb. He had a pretty good game for Poor, but that was about the end of the highlights on his side. He didn't have a fantastic game, obviously, with 105 points. Next match we had Jackie versus Vicky. Jackie wins this one 143.56 to 99.42. So Jackie's team just lit it up in the final week. Charbonnet, he scored 34.8 in Kenneth Walker's absence. Jackie's had both these players all season, and she's been so pissed off that they both suck. And once one's out, though, I mean, the other one's fantastic. They just split carries and aren't quite productive enough of an offense to support 2 running backs like the Lions are. So,
Well, the weird thing is, like, they were using Kenneth Walker as, like, their bell cow earlier in the season, and then,
yeah,
like, after he came back, and then they started bringing Charbonnet in more, and it's like, then Walker didn't seem as effective. Walker almost seems like one of those guys you wanna give more carries to because they get better as the game gets going.
yeah.
Yeah, it is kinda strange. I figured it was just gonna be a situation where it's like, you either have Kenneth Walker or he gets injured, and you have Charbonnet, and you feel good about either one individually, but yeah, like, it's kind of gone worse than you would even expect after the first couple weeks of Walker's, like, dominant play. He had, like, 3 games in a row of, like, 20 plus points and looked like one of the big winners of the, draft.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't. It's been a weird ride, but I mean, this week it worked out. Nice to have your handcuff or the 1A and 1B, I guess, on a team, but it sucks when they're having bad games and they both just kind of stink.
Yeah. Yeah, unless you're a
So,
generational offense, you're gonna have a couple of those with 2
yeah,
running back teams. It's just hard to maintain that type of production with 2 running
yeah.
backs.
It happens once in a while. I remember, I mean, Gibbs and Montgomery this year. You'd be happy
Yeah,
starting them every week.
but they're like
There
an
was
elite
that,
offense. I'm just saying,
yeah.
like, to have, like, that
There was that
many
Falcons team.
opportunities,
There's
that was an
Devonta
elite
Freeman
offense.
and someone
Yep.
Coleman and Freeman.
Devontae Freeman, yep, and
Yeah, there
Coleman.
was a
But
guy in one
again,
of our leagues that was starting both of those every week. I was
right,
like,
they were that
he was
good.
starting 2 running backs on the same team. I was
And
like,
then I think you would
can't
have had
happen.
Kamara and, Mark Ingram. They had a
Yep.
couple years. So those are there's a few instances, but again, they all have to be, like, great offenses or with, like, all fame quarterback. It doesn't seem to really work on middling teams or even, like, somewhat good offenses. It has to be almost like elite offenses to support 2 of them, at least at, like, RB1 status for both.
Yeah, Seahawks, they feel like they have the talent to be a good offense, but they're not really. I mean, I feel like it's just like I feel like it's a defensive coach for you though. Their defense has been really great this year, but their offense just isn't quite. I feel like it's not quite up to its potential. Maybe it's just Geno Smith isn't quite good enough. That
I
could be
mean,
part of
maybe
it.
the Metcalf injury hurt too. Like he's kind of like a guy that helps everyone around him because he pulls off so much coverage over the top because he's just you have to do it. You have to double
Mhm.
cover him over the top, and that probably opens up a lot of their offense. That might be part of it, but I haven't watched enough of their games to really know. Could be offensive line too. I know that their offensive line was good last year, but it was a lot of kind of like no name guys, and those are the type of situations where like they're good one year and then maybe the next year they're not as good or they start out strong and they slow
Yeah.
fizzle out. So maybe that's part of it too. But yeah, I just don't know enough about their team to really know what's going on. Talent wise, though, they have it all on their offense. We talked about it earlier in the year when they played the Lions that they're like almost like a mini version of Lions, like 3 good
Oh
receivers,
yeah,
2
they
good
went.
running
Yeah.
backs, good quarterback. They was a journeyman that looking a lot better with them. Like you could really connect the dots, and they just don't seem to pull it all together.
The other notes in this one, we had Puka. He had a hell of a game this week. He scored 35.8 for Jackie. Puka Nakua, besides Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase, he might be the 3rd best receiver in the NFL right now. He's been just fucking fantastic. He missed like
I
6 games, but every game he plays, man, even just people can't tackle the man. He's not even that big, but it's like every time he gets the ball, it's like he bounces off a guy, someone tries to tackle him, another guy has to run in to finish the tackle. Like, the dude's fantastic. And that sideline catch he had this week, I'm like,
That was one of
Jesus
the best plays I've
Christ.
seen of the year. Yeah,
How is this guy
that was
so
incredible.
fucking good? How is he a fucking 6th-round pick? It blows my mind.
That's the same stuff. I was watching that game. I always like to watch Stafford. Obviously, it was the Bills versus the Rams. So it's, I wanted to watch the Bills for next week. So like this game was great, and I was just sitting there, and like the only thing I took away from it was just Puka. Like
Yeah.
you said third.
I
I
said
mean, you know
Jamar
how
Chase
high
and
that
Justin Jefferson.
I don't think he beats Jefferson, but I think I would put him over Chase.
Think so?
Honestly,
I mean, maybe.
what I've seen so far, he's better like game to game. Chase is kind of like hot and cold, like Chase's big games are better than everyone else in the league. Like he's like the Derrick Henry of the receiving um of receivers. Like he can just have like 50-point games. You can just have crazy 70-yard touchdowns, but he's not consistent game to game. Like you can't stop Puka and you can't stop Jefferson. Like they don't get beat by like they can do all the routes. They're big enough, fast enough to take the top off the defense and take a ball 70 yards from a screen. They're also able to just beat you over the top with speed. They're able to break tackles, maybe not Jefferson as much as Puka, but like Puka is just like
Puka,
I don't know of a weakness in his game. Like I can look at Chase's game and be like, okay, he's really good at a couple things, maybe not so good at some other things, and pretty like average at the rest. But what he does really good is better than anyone in the league at those particular things. But yeah, I would say Puka probably beats him at everything else. It's just like as an all-round receiver, it's really hard to beat someone that well balanced. The only other guy in the league I can think of is Jefferson.
Yeah, the dude's been insane. It's crazy how good he is. Like I said, I'd put him probably third. I still think Chase might be better overall, but
I don't have no problem arguing that. Like I could definitely concede that. I'm just saying I want to say Puka just because I trust him more. Play to play.
I love Puka's physicality too, but he does tend to get hurt because of it.
That's the big concern, right? Yeah,
but
he got injured in his rookie year.
Right? He does not shy away from a tackle. He's not like some of the guys who run out of bounds. He doesn't. He's like, no, I'll take the hit. Right. It's like running back style. I'm like, dude. I love watching it. It's fun, but at the same time, you want to see him have a great career and not fuck that up. So
right, and that's a concern because he's been injured multiple times already. Yeah. And I think that's what kind of goes back to his college game too. Is like he got injured a lot, and I think that was one of the things that knocked him in the draft. Maybe not to take him down all the way to the 5th round or whatever, but I do know that was like one of the concerns is he had some injury concerns. I love Jefferson. I could watch Jefferson all game, all day. But
40 and so right.
I think Puka's my favorite receiver in the NFL right now. That's not on the Lions. Obviously I'm biased in those, but if I were to watch one player, I think I'd want to watch Puka. He's so fun to watch.
Dude, the Rams offense in general, when they're clicking, is fun to watch.
Oh yeah, they're great.
That's like that's one of those NFC teams you do not want to face in the playoffs.
And the defense is playing.
They can beat anybody. They can beat anybody. 100%. Absolutely. They're less consistent than the really good teams. I'll say that, but like if they're fucking on, my God, they can beat anybody. They can whoop anyone's ass. There
you go. Honest. This might be a playoff matchup. Do you think you guys can take the Packers? You think the Rams versus Packers? Who wins that?
If the Rams play as good as they did this last week, I do not think we would beat that.
Yeah, I agree.
Straight up. I mean, they were on fire. That's the thing, though. They're kind of more of a up and down team. They don't always play this well.
Also because of injuries. Like they've been getting healthy.
They were, but even since the guys have all been back for like 5 weeks now, and they've
been back for a while, and they're still losing some. That's true. That's very true.
But yeah, when they're on, my God, yeah, they look unstoppable.
I think the Packers without Jair, I would probably pick the Rams, like regardless of where they're playing, just because I think you need to have at least one corner you can trust. If you don't have a corner you can trust against those two, they'll eat you alive.
You almost need two because they still got Cup. You can still do.
Well, you can double one guy. You need like one guy that can hopefully single up, and then you can double the other guy. So like it's really hard to have two shutdown corners, but like Jair is very close. He can take one of those guys. Let him pick the matchup that he wants the most. You double the other guy, hope for the best. But if you don't have that luxury, it's hard to beat that team. Those guys, they'll eat you alive.
Yeah.
Both Cup and Puka are just there's no weakness in their game. They can beat you every part of the field.
Yeah, I mean the Rams might not even go to the playoffs, so it might be a non-issue. To be perfectly honest, because the Seahawks will get that spot, and that'll be that.
I still think they're going to win the division, but yeah, it's. I hope they do.
Not easy. It won't be easy for them, but they could do it. Yeah,
they can't be losing to the Seahawks again. Fuck.
Yeah, they need to win their division games. They need to win a bunch of their last couple games. I think they're a game and a half back on Seahawks, maybe 2 games back on the
It might be
Seahawks.
2 games. I think they lost
Yeah.
to the Seahawks, so that right there is tiebreaker.
Yeah.
So they have to beat them if they haven't played them twice. They might have already played them twice. I think they lose the tiebreaker right now.
That's a lot of that was a pretty big tangent there, so we'll get back into it. The only highlight I had on Vicky's team was Josh Jacobs. He had 3 touchdowns. That was really about it on her team. So Jackie was quite worried because that was a Thursday night game, and Josh Jacobs just kept getting touchdowns.
I told Vicky, like, hey, good start, right? Yeah, good chance for the playoffs now, and then nothing else. Good.
Yeah. That was it. That was the end of the highlights. Jackie thought she was fucked, but I was like, who cares? Packers, they're getting touchdowns. You just be happy.
Right.
Don't worry about your gets in
It's a tough place to be, but yeah. I'm always gonna cheer for the real life team over fantasy.
Same here.
How I approach it.
Then we have one more matchup. We had Ashley versus Carson. So Carson's won this one 124.5 to 83. Carson's he put in Purdy in Lamar's bye week, and he got a solid 22.1 from him. So good backup he's been holding on to for most of the season, all for this 1 week. But I mean the win mattered, so good start. Kyron, he got back scoring touchdowns again. He had 2 this week, kind of make up for some missed time. He had a few games over the last month where he didn't get any touchdowns. Chase Brown, he continues to look good for Carson's. He scored 21.8. That's a key player on Carson's team. It was a good draft pick. It was late, and he's been very good this year. Carson did take a donut from Jaden Reed. That hurt. I mean, he was active. He didn't play a lot of snaps though, and he didn't get used against the Lions at all. It was kind of weird looking back on it. I don't know what the reasoning is. We didn't have a lot of passes in general in that game though. We only completed 12 passes.
He went on Twitter and got in a Twitter war of JMO at the end of the game.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I don't know what all happened, but clearly there was some beef. I guess Jaden Reed went on the St. Brown's podcast a couple weeks ago and said, "Wait until you see me in Detroit." And then he got 0 points and he was talking shit to JMO. And then JMO's like, "You're only as good as your last game." And then he's like, "Look at my stats for my career." And it was just like, it's like he's had like 1 season. So it was kind of like a weird comeback. And like even Packer fans were giving him shit for it. So, yeah, he had some Twitter beef over the weekend.
Yeah. I don't know. Quit dropping the ball, Jalen Reed, and you'll get more receptions. Packers still lead the lead in drop passes by a lot. He's one of the culprits too. It's not just Wicks.
I mean, that's his big downside, right? I think we kind of talked. Yeah. He's not quite like a number 1 guy. I don't think you can ever see him as a number 1 guy. He's kind of like that gadgety, you want like a big dominant receiver with him. Yeah. And then he can be like your kind of Swiss Army knife, and that's perfect role for him. But he's kind of being miscast as like trying to be like your number 1 receiver. And I don't think that's where his position is. You need to get someone better than Reed on a consistent level. I think that's Dobbs most of the time, but even Dobbs, I think maybe
been without him for a couple weeks now too.
That hurts.
But Ashley, she had a good game from Baker and Bijan, but that was about it. Also, Ashley started a kicker who was on an NFL roster, so I don't know. I don't know what that was about. I mean, it's a free agent.
Is that one of those situations where like ESPN fucks up and they give someone like points, or like maybe they thought in the beginning of the week they were going to play because there's like an injury, and they put them in there and they last like a day or 2 longer than they should, and you pick them up.
I'll ask her tomorrow because I'll see her for bags, but I don't know why she started that kicker. I mean, it didn't matter. She was in the same boat as me. It didn't matter. She might have had a chance at not having the bye in the losers bracket, but she was destined for the losers bracket. Yeah, I was already destined for the bye. Like there was nothing I could, even if I beat Richard, all I could do was spoil it for Richard. A win or loss would not have affected the fact that I was getting the round 1 bye. But it wouldn't have mattered. She lost by enough that I don't think a kicker would have scored that many extra points to get her the win.
Nah, I mean, I don't think a kicker's ever scores that many points. So,
yeah, that's it for this part of the show, or that's it for this show. We're gonna have a bonus show after this. We're gonna go over we're gonna do the award show, and we're gonna do the playoff picture show. So, yeah. So we'll leave you as we always do with the Jameson. Wait, not Jameson Williams. Jameson Winston. Jameis. Yes. Yeah. We'll leave you as we always do with the Jameis Winston quote of the week. Bye now.
it was a perfect throw. It was a perfect throw, and I'm just going to continue to say that it was a perfect throw.